Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. How's everybody doing this morning?
Great.
We're
Great.
good.
Great. Happy Saturday.
Right.
Well, we thought we had technical difficulties handled last week, but apparently they're kind of looming again this Saturday. But welcome, everyone. This is our first Saturday of the month of April. We're commenting in the preamble that, these months in Michigan, anyways, are just so true to form. March, which we just had, we often say comes in like a lion, goes out like a lamb. And man, it was just blowing and storming the beginning, and then the end, it just kind of was sweet and gentle. And here we are in April. In Michigan, we say April showers bring May flowers. And Kathy and I in particular were just talking about the waves of rain showers that are coming through this morning. So really true to form, but welcome everybody. This is Voices of HealthPointe. What is Voices of HealthPointe? It's where those of us that are just coaches and clients, prospective coaches, prospective clients, we just gather for about an hour once a week, and we just kind of talk all things HealthPointe related. And for those that are able to join us live, great. You can have banter and commentary. That's what this is all about. And for those that aren't able to or choose not to, these episodes do get uploaded onto the YouTube channel called Voices of HealthPointe. I think we're 100 plus episodes up there. So we've been doing this a while. As we often do, we have some docket items to start things off, and I want to kind of mention those, and then we'll get started here. I'm going to have my docket item, which we were joking beforehand that I am finally going to answer the question, the great debate, and answer the question, which form of healthcare is actually best? I'm going to do it here, and I'm going to finally answer that question. And then we've got Kathy that is going to do a bit of a shout out to her mother-in-law, Irma. And I'll leave it at there, but this, because it is a recorded episode, maybe Irma will catch this later. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our docket items, as we call them. And then after our docket items, we just kind of free-for-all discussion. And then before we know it, the hour's up and we're all on with the rest of our Saturday. So first, I want to say that the content shared here is for informational and educational purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health routine. Our discussions draw on wellness concepts similar to those found in the HealthPointe methodology, which we hold in high regard. The ideas presented are independently developed and do not represent or speak on behalf of the HealthPointe brand. Okay, as promised, my docket item is titled, Which Form of Healthcare is Actually Best? Sometimes the most holistic thing you can do is go straight to the hospital. That sentence may sound slightly surprising to this HealthPointe community that spends so much time discussing whole foods, daily walking, mindset, metabolic flexibility, recovery, and root cause health. But this week gave me a vivid reminder that wisdom in healthcare is not about choosing sides. It is about understanding what kind of problem is in front of you and matching it to the right kind of care. What was expected to be a relatively routine visit with my father to see a hernia specialist became something entirely different. Within hours, the consultation turned into scheduled emergency surgery. What I thought would be a Thursday afternoon appointment became a long and deeply memorable stretch that carried us all the way to nearly 2 a.m. Friday morning. And in that moment, the right intervention was not a discussion about protein intake, phytonutrients, nervous system regulation, or getting your steps in. It was about surgical precision. It was about anesthesia. It was about a hospital team moving with calm urgency. It was about standard of care medicine doing exactly what it was designed to do. This is where I think it becomes helpful for all of us in the broader health and wellness world to better understand the different care models, because many of the terms get used loosely and in some cases almost interchangeably, even though they are pointing to a very different strengths. A simple way to understand the landscape is through the metaphor of firefighters, architects, and master builders. When there is an acute threat, you need firefighters. Emergency medicine, surgery, trauma teams, anesthesiologists, hospitalists, and specialists are built for the immediate problem in front of them. They are trained to stop the bleeding, remove the obstruction, repair the tissue, restore the flow, or stabilize the crisis. In the United States, this is the world most people think of when they think of medicine. Primary care physicians, MDs, DOs, specialists, surgeons, and hospitals. This is often referred to as Western medicine or standard of care, aka SOC or SOC. This is a standard of care or SOC model, and it remains the dominant framework for acute care, diagnostics, procedures, and specialist intervention, and it deserves deep respect. In our case, I want to give a sincere shout out to Dr. Laker in West Bloomfield, Michigan, along with the entire team at the Henry Ford Providence Hospital. The competency was extraordinary, but what stood out just as much was the humanity. The nurses, the surgical staff, the support teams, and every interaction carried both confidence and kindness. At one point, I found myself in what felt like a maze of hallways, trying to navigate the hospital late into the evening, and Miss Rita helped guide me. What began as a practical conversation about directions turned into a beautiful human exchange. She shared that she had been caring for and cleaning those hallways for decades. That simple moment opened into a conversation about our faiths, our beliefs, and the spirit in which people serve others. Later, when I heard an early morning announcement over the hospital PA system that closed with a reference to God, something clicked for me. It explained the culture I had been feeling all night. Yes, the medicine was advanced. Yes, the surgical skill was elite. But underneath it, I could feel something even more foundational. Spiritual faith expressed through service, reverence, compassion, and human dignity. It was present in the way people spoke, the way they carried themselves, the calmness in the hallways, and the comfort that seemed to come through the entire environment. In my personal view, and I know the view of many, but not all of us here at Voices of HealthPointe, faith in God is not separate from healing, but rather it is the deepest foundation beneath it, shaping the culture, the character, and the humanity through which every category of care is ultimately delivered. So again, a big shout out to Dr. Laker, Henry Ford Providence Hospital, and all standard of care models that stand ready in the acute moments of life when decisive action, technical mastery, compassionate presence, and in many cases, faith-filled service come together to protect life, restore function, and give people the opportunity to return to the long game of healing. But firefighters are not the whole story. Some healthcare models are less about rescuing the burning house and more about understanding why the wiring keeps failing and starting fires in the first place. This is where functional medicine becomes clear. Functional medicine often behaves like an architect or maybe a systems engineer. It asks upstream questions. Why is this inflammation happening? Why is blood sugar unstable? Why is a person fatigued, inflamed, or hormonally dysregulated? It maps systems, pathways, nutrient status, gut function, mitochondrial output, sleep, stress signaling, and biochemical networks. Its defining instinct is root cause mapping. So you think of functional medicine, think root cause. Integrative medicine, while often confused with functional medicine, has a slightly different emphasis. Integrative medicine is often best understood as conventional medicine plus carefully selected supportive modalities, many of which come from healing traditions across cultures. This can include acupuncture, mindfulness, yoga, herbal medicine, Ayurveda, Eastern traditions, spirituality, and mind-body practices, all thoughtfully combined with standard medical care. The defining idea is integration itself, bringing together the best validated tools from multiple healing lineages. Just a side note, some of you are aware that I have credentials in integrative oncology, and often that's confusing. We're not saying not to work with their standard of care oncology team, which might be using radiation, surgical, or chemotherapy. It is rather looking at that, working with that, and also additional modalities like certainly diet or exposure to toxicity and so forth. So that's integrative medicine. And then above all of that sits the word holistic. Holistic is not a credential, it is a lens. The word comes from the Greek root holos, meaning whole. And Carol, I'll shout out to you on some preamble things that we were talking about with your folks from Greece. So interesting. The word comes from the Greek root holos, meaning whole person, whole system, whole life. A holistic practitioner is asking how biology, psychology, sleep, relationships, movement, purpose, stress, environment, faith, and behavior all interact. In that sense, a surgeon can be deeply holistic. A functional practitioner can be holistic. Us coaches can be holistic. It is less about the letters after the name and more about whether the person sees the whole human being. This is where my father's story creates a beautiful bridge between worlds. The surgery solved the acute mechanical issue, but the recovery environment was shaped by decades of lifestyle. At 87, he remains physically fit, metabolically strong, active, and on no medications, largely because he has put in the work for decades through movement, nutrition, and discipline, and yes, long before I ever had any influence on him. More than one member of the surgical team commented on how his metabolic health and overall physical fitness made their work easier and how strongly they expected his recovery to progress. What this week reinforced for me is that the most complete view of healthcare is not an either or framework at all, but one in which each model serves a different and necessary role within the larger story of true healthcare and healing. The surgeon and the standard of care team handle the acute moment. Functional medicine helps investigate the upstream drivers and root causes. Integrative medicine broadens the toolbox with supportive practices from multiple healing traditions. A holistic lens keeps the whole person in view: body, mind, relationships, environment, and spiritual life. And lifestyle shapes the terrain in which overall health, wellness, and long-term resilience unfold. Perhaps the best way to think about healthcare is not to ask which model is best. The better question is, what is each model built to solve? The most mature view of health is not choosing camps. It is learning how each model serves a different moment in the story of health, wellness, and healing. Okay, guys, that is my docket item. And so for those that care to have some commentary or feedback, go ahead and unmute and chime in. And if nobody has anything, of course, we'll just move along to our next docket item.
Hey, Eric, I'm going to jump in right now. First and foremost, being in, similar situations with you in the past couple of years, I am just giving you the biggest kudos that anybody can share for taking the time to get this all together, to be able to share it after not getting home until 2 a.m. on Friday. This just exemplifies, yet again, the amazing human being, caring, considerate, perfectly wonderful person that you are, that you, after going through all this adversity, you were like, okay, wait, this is a teaching moment. I can do something really cool for our HealthPointe community. I might not have gotten much sleep and it might not be as polished as maybe I would want it to be, because I do kind of make sure that everything is perfect when I'm doing it. But I'm going to do this anyway because I think it's going to benefit so many people. And it just exemplifies who you are. So I just want to say I love you and thank you for doing this. And I'm so glad your dad's okay.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, it's very kind. I will say though, guys, for many of us, this community, this environment is our, is a form of our healthcare. And Carol, she was so sweet.
Volume is way down now.
And when I was communicating to Carol last night, I was like, hey, because we had a little bit of drama that popped up, and Kathy, you and David are no strangers to this, right? We just benefited from you guys talking about David and his story, and you coaching him back to health, and being this surgical team being able to advance his surgery by like 6 months and take him out of kind of a ICU type of or high risk environment into something more moderate. So I mean, you guys have spoken to this as well, but as you know, things pop up, drama pops up in things, and we had that moment which caused me to hop in my vehicle and rather late last night run to a 24-hour pharmacy, trying to get something handled. And that's when I reached out to Carol and said, hey, just wanted to give you a quick shout that maybe we won't be doing Voices of HealthPointe tomorrow, but I'll know in the morning. And she came back, and this was the point, is Carol is like, listen, maybe don't feel like you got to do this. Maybe it would be, I can get word out, etc. And she was just so amazing, as she always is, about not ever putting any of us under any undue type of pressure. And it was great to hear that from you, Carol. But I said, unless something does pop up, I'm there because I want to be there and kind of quote unquote need to be there. So thank you for that, Kathy. But this is healing for me too. So thanks.
I think Eric and I both agreed that it's very therapeutic to be on these calls. And sometimes it's the most therapeutic when you're in the do yourself, so to speak, and to just be around a community that's supportive is just really very, very therapeutic. So again, Eric, thank you so much, and our deepest respect to you for that unbelievable comparison of all the systems. I mean, that is the nicest, best compilation of what each one does. And we all of us, and I'm at the head of the line, want to do things and be the best we can and do the best we can. But sometimes, no matter what shape you're in, like your father's in excellent shape, and a hernia still happens. Sometimes these things happen because we try to stay in shape. And, we're dealing with a knee or a hernia or something because we're trying to stay healthy and be in shape. But how beautifully everything worked together. I really, really loved that comparison. It was very good. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah,
also, I'll say that, so I have drafts, as we experience things with clients and other coaches and stuff like that. I'm like, that might be a good walk and talk docket item. So I have these drafts. So I'd had this draft kind of pending about the different care models, and it was just out there in the draft zone. I never, found the need to develop it. But when this went down, it popped into my mind. I'm like, hey, I'm going to flesh that out, because boy, did that come into play here. And so I already kind of had it halfway put together. It just needed the right environment and reason to surface it. And boy, did we have that. So.
Yeah, actually, I was I lived through this, and Kathy can attest, and you guys have heard it before. So everything you're saying is just completely on point, and I love how you put it together better than I could ever do. But I was going to say that, the difference between being, in health point shape and not being in health point shape, I've seen the two differences. And the best thing we can do is to prepare ourselves to be in the best shape possible for whatever comes through next. So I plan on staying in the best health point possible shape. So that way, no matter what happens in the future, at least I'm hedging my bet on myself. So. And I can see your dad believes in the same thing.
Yes, thanks, Dave. And for those that didn't catch the recent Monday evening Lean Team session with Carol hosting it, where Dave's before and after pictures and a bit of that story were there. Boy, unbelievable before and after pictures, and beautiful story about Dave and Kathy dancing. So talk about the physical, recovery and ability. And Dave, your before picture, I will tell you, because that's the beautiful thing about before and after pictures. When you have that after pictures, you can say all kinds of things about the before picture because it's no longer there. But I will tell you, now that we're in the free commentary zone, that before picture is rough. You are not looking healthy there, my friend. But the great news is what a beautiful after picture of the two of you all dressed up there, arm in arm, and doing dancing. And why, one of the many of reasons why you wanted to get healthy, is to be able to do that. So your after picture, you're a stud. You're looking amazing. And Kathy, you as well. Not to, David's amazing, but you're 58 pounds and reversal of pre-diabetes, and that is just amazing story in and of itself. And everybody's got the Hank and Carol and in the coaching seat to help us do that. So great stuff. So thanks.
May I take a moment and give a comment?
Yes.
It's my husband,
Yes.
Tom. This is Debbie. And my husband's
Tom.
with
Hey,
me.
Debbie.
Go ahead, Tom.
The illustration that you provided was amazing. The fact that all of these elements work in concert is really the key. And we have a tendency to hopscotch our way through some of the elements one way or the other, and focus on that one step, if you will. But the blend of all of these and how they do integrate and become a critical part of your overall health is really key. You've done an excellent job of that. We tend to focus on steps or nutrition or certain aspects, but it is the entire concert of processes and support elements that are really key in this. We've had a wonderful stretch of weather up here, and as you know, and I've been able to do a lot of clearing and spending 12,000 steps a day, but that's really only one piece of the puzzle. But you've done an excellent job of really showing how they work in concert and to blend together to be it'll give you a much better direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. You hit on some great descriptive words. I should have reached out to you as I was drafting this. You were talking about the hopscotch metaphor. That was a great visual. And then the kind of the concert. And that is really what it is every piece in that orchestra has a critical role at a certain point in time. And you described that really well, Tom. So note to self to reach out to Tom and Debbie the next time I'm struggling through writing a docket item. You've got some great terminology there.
I'm going to jump in here real quick if it's okay.
Yes.
I first of all, I'm glad your dad's well. I'm glad he had you in his corner, and because I know you, maybe internally you're racing, but you're outside. You're probably very calm and put together, So anyway, I'm glad for that. And I was thinking as you were talking about that, how a couple things. One, remember years ago, Carol and Hank brought in Novi somewhere, we had Dr. Chet come and talk. And he's somebody that's connected. I think is he a physiologist? I'm not sure what his background is. It's medical, but I'm not sure if he's actually a doctor or a doctorate of. But anyway, he was talking about Nutrilite and all those kinds of things. And he made a comment that always stuck with me. He said, look, that supplements and all the things we do nutritionally are important. He said, but they may not be replacing chemotherapy. He said, and so he said, there are going to be lots of things in the medical world that we need to still access and use and not discount. But he said, that's what the supplements are for. They clean up the mess later. And I remember him saying that. In other words, in one kind of sentence, he gave permission because, Nutrilite was really coming on and everybody was like, oh, you don't need medicine. You don't. And great, if you don't need it, that's great. But just the way he said that, use what medical people can provide for you if it's helpful and it's going to do the job, but then clean it up later or before with supplement use. And I think we're finding more and more of that now. So that was part of it. And the other thought I had was something that Al and I have been going through for a few years now, is trying to, in the process, more the prep stage, finding to sort through our doctors, all the different people that we would access. And we put out there kind of our thought pattern and see what happens. And some of them totally discount it and blow it off. We go, okay, next, we have to find a new cardiologist, or we have to find, but you have to, I think it helps if you have medical people, and it sounds like you were in the right place at the right time, that agree with the whole, all a little bit from everywhere. I know I have a internal medicine doctor who constantly tells me if I ever have to have an antibiotic, she says, the routine, double up on those probiotics. I mean, there's a lot of doctors that wouldn't say that. And so anyway, we found a couple doctors down here in Florida that fit the bill. And I just think that that's, again, part of it. And that's a good example of what you gave, how everybody, if everybody can work together and everybody's open to all the possibilities, it just makes life easier. So anyway, that's it.
That's great, Laurel. Yeah, love that Dr. Chet said that, and just as you said, you kind of said, kind of gave permission, because, this stuff can get tribal. I mean, we're in a strange space, right? When we're talking with, some of these topics, it can get tribal. Not quite sure why that is, but the point is that it's not really necessary, and that's not certainly, the world of HealthPointe to be tribal. Yes, there's a recognition of structure and biology and systems and so forth, but love it that Dr. Chet was kind of giving permission that, if you need something that requires a scalpel, don't try to fix it with a vitamin C, right? Get the scalpel
Exactly.
if that's required. But at the same time, as we know, if somebody is, he says, hey, what about the supplements? If somebody, for example, is doing some things that could affect their heart, we talked about
I
that.
may
Right?
say
And
something
maybe
about
getting a CoQ10.
your hospital visit,
And
but
again,
I'll just say
we've
we
got
were at
some
the
background
hospital
noise,
with a
guys.
family
You're on,
member.
you're not
With
muted.
I'll just
Please
say a
mute
family
yourself.
member at the hospital,
Let
not
me see
you.
here, guys. Gotta do a
Okay.
mute all. Okay. So just to mute also, anybody that does want to speak, just please unmute yourself. But trying to think of where I was at. I think I was talking about, like a CoQ10, right? So there's certain health experiences that people can have that, fortunately, even non-holistic doctors these days, I think, would recognize and advocate, boy, you should supplement with a CoQ10. If they're taking a statin, for example. And again, we're not giving medical advice here, but I think if you poll 10 doctors, 8 of them are going to be aware of supplementing with CoQ10 if you're on a statin. And for the other 2, they may want to brush up on their continuing education credits to figure that out and be part of the 8, because it's pretty common knowledge. But there's dozens and dozens of situations where it's not an either or, it's both, and you use them at the right times. But people do tend to get tribal, get kind of in their camp, and there's really no reason for it in the scope of overall health. So thanks for that, Laurel. And just a brief shout out too on, you mentioned about me being there. We talked about this, I don't know, a couple of episodes ago, maybe it was last episode, about kind of that advocate role. Guys, remember that docket item or that discussion point in Voices of HealthPointe where we talked about David, I think you were there talking about Chris and when her care through COVID moved to Zoom and how that really allowed for that more advocate role where you're able to be there. And I got to tell you guys, the way this played out was my dad, and I won't throw him under the bus here, but we'll just say that he was trying to keep a couple of things, not so clear to us kids. All right, I just threw him under the bus in a way. But point is I was just like, hey, I think I can clear my schedule and be alongside you for that visit that you mentioned that, because it was just like an, oh, by the way type of thing that he's doing. And to my delight and kind of a little bit of a surprise, he was like, hey, that would be great if you can do that. So I was just like, hey, sure. And I just swung through West Bloomfield. We didn't even drive together. We just caravan. I met him there. I was clueless into what was truly going on there because he didn't share. In fact, he didn't even share in the clinic. It wasn't until we were with the hospital team that some things surfaced as what to, the story behind the story of what got us there. But anyhow, that's for a different talk. But the point is we talked about the advocate role. Imagine if he's there by himself, very sharp individual, very competent, but an 87-year-old individual there for what he thought was a routine visit and suddenly being hit with the reality. And guys, for those that don't know, when you're dealing with a hernia situation or any intestinal, and David Munoz, you and Kathy can talk about this, when you have a suspicion of a pinch of an intestinal, a bowel, that is not a cool thing, okay? Because you can get sepsis, you can, things can back up, right? You can start displaying vomiting, you can start displaying dehydration. And he wasn't displaying any of that, but there was a suspicion that there might be a blockage if you don't handle it right away and you're limiting blood flow because you've got the vein and the artery system for inflow and outflow. And if that's pinched, that part of the bowel can atrophy and kind of die off. And then you're coming in and doing surgery to cut and splice. And so imagine him kind of trying to figure all that out and make a high stress decision at that point without an advocate. So again, the value of this Voices of HealthPointe community and some of the discussions that we have, we covered an entire episode on that, as I recall. And for those that weren't on here, you can go back to the episodes and look for that and listen to that conversation. There was so many of us in here. David, you and Chris come to mind, but there was others that mentioned about that, being alongside someone, because there's that kind of that white coat syndrome where they can kind of be a little bit stressed and pie-eyed as a doctor or a nurse is talking with them. And you can be there on the side, kind of calm and reasoning and educated, which many of us are very educated on these broader topics and can advocate and help make those decisions. So anyhow, thanks for that, Laurel. Thanks again.
Well, Eric, you used the perfect word, educated, because that's what my comment was going to be, is I think our Saturday morning, above all the things that go on during the week, I think this is one of them that we get the most educated as far as the overall picture. And you do such a good job of that with your certifications and things. You have a much greater degree of understanding just when you went through the LDL and the HDL, just I guess that was last week or maybe the week before, and reminded us of that. And then a while back, the blood pressure thing, and just some of these understandings of our bodily functions are really important so that we can be aware of them in the beginning. So they don't develop into something, and sometimes they do. I'm certainly not saying that, but I think the more educated and the more understanding we can have on these things, and there's many podcasts out there too, by some of the favorite doctors that you mentioned, Dr. Amen, Dr. Lustig, many of them, Casey Means, many of them are really good, just making you aware. I always remember Dr. Vicki Nelson. She's my kind of go-to girl if I have a question, a medical type question initially, and just to make sure that I'm thinking right and understanding. And she'll always ask a why. And that is the biggest first question is, if you have a situation, why? And I think some of these things that we learn on Saturday mornings are so valuable as to why these things happen. And then many times on Monday nights, all of you talk about the various products that we can do to counteract some of these things initially. And then if they don't work, they don't work, obviously. But sometimes we can get to the bottom of, why is this happening? Is there something nutritionally I can do first? Okay, let's see if that's the case. Then if that's not the case, then we go to step B and continue on. And all of them fit in perfectly to the whole scheme of things. But that big why, I think, is one of the first questions we want to ask ourselves. And we learn so much from you, Eric, and then from all the other people that chime in as a result of your docket items. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, let me just say too, along those lines, we do appreciate all that you do, and certainly, as Carol just said, the Saturday morning walk and talks are a little different breed than the other walk and talks. All are great, but the ones we have here, I mean, the key word, as Carol mentioned, is education. We learn some things, and that's great. And so a shout out to you, and I appreciate you covering the things you did. Sharon and I also were involved with hospitals this past week with a family member. And one of the, one of the things you mentioned is one of the things is that the same thing that Paul in the Romans, the letter he wrote to Romans in the Bible, it says, honor others more than yourself. You People spend years getting education, and maybe we don't always agree, etc., but we've got to honor them, and you did a great job of honoring them. But let me also say, in regards to that, the hospital discharge papers for this person that we were with listed the things they should do afterwards. And one of the things that they put in their list for discharge that you had to sign was take a multivitamin and take a separate item was take omega 3s. So I thought that was a great deal.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's great.
That is really great, Jerry, to hear on discharge papers about that. And then, yeah, just more broadly on the Saturday morning being kind of unique in that we often do get into, educational parts. And, it's one part of the recipe of HealthPointe, right? We've got community, we've got education, we've got motivating factors to help others, not only for just the good feeling of doing it, but candidly for careers and income and building business in the wonderful world of health and wellness coaching and so forth. So there's a lot going on here, and wow, that is really great, Jerry. The omega 3s, not knowing, of course, what the individual that you're talking about was in for, but if they're in a hospital, it can be surgery. But, one of the things with omega 3s, first of all, most Americans, I forget what the statistic is, but they are deficient. So, there's a number of biomarkers that if you do get tested, where most Americans are not deficient, they may be insufficient. We talked about that, right? It's difficult in America these days to walk through society and be truly deficient, for example, of vitamin C and have the symptoms of scurvy. That was something when the sailors were coming across the oceans and they didn't understand things, they might be deficient and be symptomatic of that with their teeth, rotting and falling out and so forth like that. Pretty rare for somebody in America to be deficient of vitamin C, but it's another thing and this is a term from Dr. Mark Hyman, he talks about insufficiency versus deficiency. And that's a whole different conversation. If you're just trying to meet the threshold of deficiency, so you're not deficient on a blood draw, then there's ways you can go about that. And you're probably not going to have too much difficulty, certainly in America. But if you're talking about optimal levels, and if they're prescribing in the discharge papers, Jerry, for things like a multivitamin and an omega-3, one of the things we know about omega-3 is its help with anti-inflammatory, right? So there's a whole discussion on that. So if they had a surgery and so forth, that might be why they are making that recommendation. But again, these are for optimal levels, or more meeting the threshold of being more optimal and sufficient, not just not deficient. And so, and for the record, yes, my father is taking omega-3s and, double X and CoQ10 and so forth. And for those, I'll just give this shout out for family members, for loved ones, if you can do it. And I think, that's one of the benefits of being in business and, charting your own course and gaining control of your income and not saying I can't do things because I can't afford it. I know for both Emily and I believe Emily is on here, but we handle the cost for those supplements for our parents. Okay. So with my dad, a subscription, a ditto delivery where he's getting those various items. You can do what you want, but if you've got family or friends and you can do it, loved ones, if they can't or choose not to, I say use the profits of this capitalistic program, this free enterprise program, make the money and give back. I mean, my dad and mother, my mom's passed, but I'm so grateful for them for putting up with me and raising me, so it's the least I can do. So that's my stump speech on that one anyways. So I'll get off my soapbox and turn it over to
Hello, Eric.
Hello.
Hi, this is Hank. Eric, how are you?
Great.
You're doing great.
How are you?
Great, thank you. I want to share something with you I came across just the other day. This is by a doctor. The title of it is called Shocking. A doctor's 40 years secret you must know. And he lists a number of things. Starting out, sugar. If people avoided sugar for just 30 days, about 80% of common symptoms would improve. Second, vitamin D. Taking vitamin D, and Dr. Mikosi recommends 10,000 units a day. That's one of my guys I follow. Taking vitamin D daily would leave my clinic much quieter. Thirdly, omega 3. Daily omega 3 intake can significantly reduce inflammation in the body. Sleep. Fix your sleep schedule, and half of your health complaints will disappear. Hydration. Most mystery fatigue is just chronic dehydration. Protein. Low protein weakens immunity and causes hair fall and slows healing. And the last one is iron. So many people feel tired not because of stress, but due to hidden deficiency of iron. So those are the points he brings out, which I thought was very interesting to share. And that's a guy who's got 40 years experience as a doctor.
Wow, that's great and so doable. And I know we've heard you reference that particular doctor before, Hank, and thanks for that. Sugar should be well understood, but what a simple thing, right? To getting the benefits by reducing that. or eliminating it. And for 30 days, that's very doable. And what an impact. And then it's interesting as you're going through like vitamin D, the omega, and so forth. Increasingly, I'm hearing, again, Carol, you mentioned about some of these other doctors, and I know we all kind of read books and listen to people. We talked about Dr. Peter Attia, Dr. Mark Hyman, I just talked about, Dr. Robert Lustig. I've also referenced Dr. Rhonda Patrick. What an amazing human being, and really scientific in her orientation. So Hank, she also, in something relatively recently, is maybe last summer, I was listening to a discussion with her and Dr. Huberman. And she went through, he asked, after this long discussion, deep in the weeds on various things. And then he's like, well, what do you take supplements and what are your go-tos or what are your recommendations? And her list almost exactly matches what you just shared, Hank. So, and this is what she personally does. So, for those that, and I don't hear this very much, but for those that most people are taking supplements or advocates for supplements, maybe they're, we're having discussions on different brands and, the Nutrilite brand versus other brands and stuff like that. But I find most people are of the opinion that they recognize filling in the nutritional gaps through supplementation is a wise thing. But then to hear people like Dr. McCosey, Dr. Rhonda Patrick actually give these specifics is just consistent with the common state of medical education these days, which is wonderful. Thanks, Hank. Thank you very much.
Well, and obviously, Hank, for a lot of us, our 30-day sugar-free countdown starts after we open up the Easter basket tomorrow.
Was that Tom? I think it was. All right, we bring it right back to being real, don't we? We're all off in our little pontificating soapboxes, and then Tom just brings us back to tomorrow's Easter baskets. Thanks, Tom.
I have to butt in on that one because for those of you that are on lifetime maintenance still salivating over the Easter basket candy, I have to tell you, there will come a day when you just do not salivate after that stuff anymore, especially if you eat some nice dark chocolate. I think it's called Hulu. It's a branded chocolate that is about the cleanest I've seen, other than pure cocoa with nothing else in it. It is very, very tasty. But anyway, we were at a Brazilian birthday / baby shower bash last weekend. And of course, the Brazilians, I mean, if you're on a protein day, you are in heaven because they just love their grilled meat. And I mean, I was salivating over there and I was shoving it in my face because we don't grill around our house. And so it was really good. And so we're just getting ready to leave. And our sweet friend, Ty, says, "Oh, before you go, I've got something special for you." And so she goes into the refrigerator and she pulls out these big hunker of strawberries, the biggest strawberries I've ever seen. But they are not, strawberries normally are coated with like little, strawberries are you there?
Yes, yeah, it just has a hot
Okay.
mic there. Yeah.
All right. Strawberries are typically with a very thin crust of dark chocolate on them, which makes them relatively legal. Not these. I don't know where she got them, but they had like at least a 1/4 inch, at least, of not dark chocolate, milk chocolate. I mean, the sweet milk chocolate. I took one bite of it and I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't tasted this in years. And it didn't taste good. That's the thing. It didn't taste good. So I gave the rest to Hank, and I think he took one bite, and then we, put it away. But it is funny because the Easter candy kind of syndrome, I think over a period of time, I don't know, maybe I'm weird. That stuff just does
you're
not
not.
draw on me anymore. The Easter bunnies and the marshmallow puffs, and I mean, it's just kind of, to me, after a while, it gets disgusting. Now, call me nuts, okay? I'm just being honest with you, that I think the more you eat clean, the more you realize how good that stuff tastes versus what we were all brought up on. So anyway, not to get on the soapbox, but
Just
No,
to add
it's
on
not a
to,
soapbox
just,
at all. In fact, I think it deserves. Maybe I'll steal it and do it a draft for a future docket item. And on the clean tongue, and literally, I can remember Emily and I. Again, there was a number of things with Emily and I where we did not hear or anticipate some of the benefits. We talked about it in one of your episodes, Carol, where Emily, her migraines, virtually went away. Her allergies really, really reduced. We didn't know that was going to happen. The third thing, I can remember when we were on a walk up by our cottage and we're walking along, we're just sharing and stuff, and we came across, we were talking about how our taste buds had changed. Again, nobody told us that, and I thought, I wonder if there's any science behind that. Well, sure enough, there it is. Your taste buds are not something that you're born with that are with you the same for your entire life. They can and will change. Nobody ever told me that. And so what you're talking about, Carol, where you literally used to love that quarter-inch thick milk chocolate on a strawberry, now is like kind of disgusting to you. You would not choose it, even if it was free and available. You literally don't want it. So that's a very real thing. And I think as educators, as HealthPointe coaches, I don't think, there's enough things that people don't believe when they start the program, right? There's enough pushback and what about this and how about that? I mean, so I don't think we need to broach the subject of, hey, your taste buds will change, within their first week or two of their 6-week cycle, because they're already dealing with enough disbelief and so forth. But maybe later at some point, just say, hey, by the way, here's the science behind it. And, I know you're still kind of relying on a little bit of discipline here when you're choosing between a McDonald's supersize with extra fries and diet, Coke or whatever, or this salad. But there will come a point where you will literally crave this salad over that Big Mac and fries. And I know you don't believe it now, but you're in your 3rd week. So start thinking about it. So that's my thoughts on that. So it's a very real thing, Carolyn. Thanks for that. Well,
one brief comment.
Yes, David.
And so my brief comment is a Nancy Dornism about money. Actually, I met a person this past week who felt like they were doing well. And as far as more money, I said, well, you don't need more money now. And better health. Okay, you might be able to get away with whatever. So you don't need better health now. But there could be a time down the road where you're going to wish you had it. And the second thing I wanted to say is, and this isn't putting light on me, I'm putting light on Hank. We are so grateful to have Hank in our community. And so this is his one of his Bibles. Mine is perused. His is probably underlined and highlighted. And just to state that I've had a number of heart surgeries, and it was with the help of Hank afterwards of giving me supplement ideas and different things to do, that a year later, I was no longer on any medications. I was diagnosed with COPD. Now, I did some crazy things out of the box, but in addition to that, Hank helped me with some supplements and some other things also. And a year later, I was on no medications. And so I am just grateful to have Hank available. His knowledge of the different supplements and what they do and how they do things has been extremely beneficial. I am where I am today, a great part to Hank and Carol, but Hank's understanding of this book and the knowledge that he has available to us. So my shout out is to all of the community where I learned so much, but I'm grateful to Hank for what he has actually done for me. Thank you.
Thanks for that, David. So true. And Hank, thanks for sharing just a moment ago, but your knowledge, your wisdom, your years of wisdom, and for those that are new or not aware, Hank is a wonderful, healthy, no medications is one of his markers. 92, I think, or something in the 90s. So we'll call it 92. And so This is not an academic, ivory tower preachy type thing. This is Hank is living it and experiencing it and sharing with the rest of us. And we're so grateful to you, Hank, on not only the things about like the health and understanding of different, often plant-based, coming from the earth, supplements, certainly with Nutrilite, but also just your mode of operating with people too. When I think of you, Hank, I think of asking questions with people. Your conversation isn't about pontificating about yourself and all yourself. You talk about whether it's somebody, walking into a restaurant. When I picture you and Carol walking into a restaurant, if I was a fly on the wall watching, I'm like, this is going to be good because I know somewhere, I don't know, I'm going to be watching Hank. I don't know if it's something he's going to comment about somebody's baby, and how cute it is or whatever. But the next thing I know, they're going to have best friends, and that person's life is going to be, blessed and changed because Hank didn't come in and tell them all about. They probably at the end of that restaurant experience would be like, who is Hank? We didn't ask him anything, and he's got all their kids' names and what's important to them and, everything. So the power of asking questions, Hank, you're brilliant on that. And focusing on other people and putting the light on them. Yes, with, I won't say an agenda, but, visiting with a purpose, we'll say. That purpose could just be making a great friend, but it could also be changing the trajectory of their metabolic health. Hey, would that be a bad thing? I don't think so. And I don't think we need to be, I think we need to be skilled at that, but we don't need to be shy or closed mouth about that. We need to be, in my opinion, strong about that. Get some backbone. Hank, you would intimidate me, seeing how you operate, where you are able to just reach out and connect. It's taken me a while to kind of come out of my shell and realize that it's not about me so much as it about them. And you put the focus on them. And that's what you help us understand, Hank. And we appreciate you for that, for sure.
Eric?
If there's Kathy, I want to get some. We started late because of another back-to-back technical glitch, which, but I would love to hear your bit of a shout out. So Kathy, over to you as we wrap up the program.
I think Hank wanted to say something real quick. Hank, did you want to mention something real quick?
Well, I was just going to mention I had a great teacher, that's Skip Ross. And every time I counseled with him, here's his approach. He never told me what to do. His answer always was, well, here's what I've learned, he says. That's how he starts. Here's what I've learned over the years. And that's what he would share and touches the topic that I was discussing with him. And it's about always what he's learned. So you don't go approach somebody, hey, here's what you got to do. No. Here's what I've learned over the years. It's been very helpful. Just my thoughts.
Wow, that's great. And no better than the late Skip Ross. What a legacy that, and for those that are new to Voices of HealthPointe, not sure who Skip Ross is, it is actually, fortunately, in some of the daily messages. And Kathy, if I wasn't already teeing you up for your docket item, I'm sure you would, as our orange dot queen, would know what number that is. But I think it's the kick in the wrist. But Skip Ross is just a legendary human being, full of wisdom. He's had entire educational programs that, those of us in the United States, we think it was
Orange dot 33.
What was it?
Orange dot 33.
All right. So those of you, orange dot, when we say orange dot, we're talking the number. It's in orange circle.
Day 28.
Number 28?
Orange dot 33, day 28.
Day 28. Okay. So it's day 28 in your program, and it's Skip Ross. So you'll be able to listen to him. But what an amazing human being. You know, you routinely from people around the world, you know, Australia, parts of Europe, Eastern Europe, where they're just, you know, their foundation was the Dynamic Living series by Skip Ross. You know, there's people that just rocked their world, changed their paradigm of how they thought about things, and you know, have gone on to great things in their lives from that human being, Skip Ross. So Hank, to have for you and Carol to have them as dear friends, Skip and Susan Ross, and counselors, and is, yeah, what a special access you guys had. So, Kathy, your shout out.
Okay. So, first of all, I want to tell anybody, if you're talking to somebody and you're sharing your story about HealthPointe and you don't think they're listening, don't give up. Just continue to share your story and live your life and be you. And eventually, if they realize that they do want to make some changes, they might finally reach out and say, yes, I want to do this. This is probably the third time, I think, that my mother-in-law has said that she wants to do HealthPointe. And this is over probably since we started back in 2018. You know, it was probably like, 2019 when we both had lost our weight, she wanted to do it. And then, no, she couldn't do it. And then, I don't know, maybe 2024, maybe she was going to try and do it again, you know. And then last year, she watched the first Connect to Health that we had. She was intrigued and was like, okay, yeah, I think I want to do this. And that's as far as it went. Well, I really think with Dave's last transformation and her seeing everything that's happened to him, and she, unfortunately, has encountered some health challenges. And I think it's made her stop and think a little bit more about her health. And I said to her, so how much weight do you want to lose? She goes, well, I don't really want to lose too much weight. I just want to be healthy. And I'm like, okay, well, that's awesome because that's what we want to do. We want to get you healthy. And she's not obese, you know, but as we all know, when you do the program, you end up losing a little bit of weight because nobody's at their healthy weight if they're not healthy, you know? So, so this week she finally did say, yes, I want to do this. We actually have also gone through and we've ordered the products and we've gotten her the app. So this is farther than we've ever been. And she, you know, she's relying on Dave and I a lot for a lot of help, which, you know, because she's my mother-in-law, of course we're going to give it to her. So she's going to get a little bit more private coaching than someone else might get from me, you know, but whatever it takes, you know, we're going to do it together. And I just want to shout her out because I'm very proud of her for making the decision. And I told her, I said, this week, eat whatever junk you want. Enjoy yourself this weekend with Easter. Monday, April 6th is your first protein day. And that's it. We cleaned out her fridge yesterday. 6 garbage bags of crap between the fridge and the pantry, you know. So she's like, oh, you're getting me. Yep. Oh, no. Yep. You know, but you know, she's all in this time. So I'm really proud of her.
We explained why.
I'm really proud of her, and just want to shout her out. Like I said, she can't be on today. Hopefully we can get her on next Saturday. But because she's starting, I wanted to shout her out. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, just to let you know, I mean, I told her too. I said, yeah, you don't look like you need to lose weight. But statistically, and depending on where you look, 20 to 30% of skinny people are fat people. So,
yeah, that visceral fat, that interior, you know, dangerous fat. That's the fat around your organs that are correlates with chronic disease. So, wow.
This may be a great community.
What's her name? If you want to share her name,
Irma Munoz.
All right, Irma, welcome, and thank you, Kathy and David. Welcome, Irma. You won't miss that 6 bags of stuff that has been extracted from your refrigerator and pantry. That's wonderful. And that's what this ultimately is all about, is just helping one person at a time. David Dassau, you've given us a story before of the starfish story, which, we're wrapping up the programs. We won't reiterate that, but the bottom line is this is about thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people being effective. Certainly that's the case with HealthPointe, but it's really the Irma stories. It's one person at a time. And so thank you for that, Kathy and David. Wonderful. And well, guys, we are wrapped up. And so I don't think we have any particular announcements. If we do, Carol,
just one quick plea. I need volunteers for Monday night. I sent out a message yesterday, but you might not have got it, everybody. But we are going to do tips and tricks for HealthPointe. We want to continue to make HealthPointe fun and lots of great ideas. And you did such a great job with the non-scale victories a few weeks ago. We got so many wonderful comments back. So we're going to do the same type of thing, open format, open cameras, open mics, if at all possible. It doesn't end up to be a menagerie, but we'll have Beth on our side, policing. But if you could just think of a tip, a trick, maybe a not a real detailed fancy gourmet meal, but a nice simple HealthPointe meal that you find works for you, a great HealthPointe snack that works for you, a habit stacking pattern that you've developed that has really helped you. Any ideas, any tips and tricks? We want to hear from as many of you as possible. We'll make it 1 to 2 minute comment, and I do need those in advance so I know what I'm working with kind of coming on in. So we can keep it within that 30 minutes, but love to hear from all of you. And just a reminder that Thursday night, making sure that it's fun, Natalie and Dave Dornan have brought Alex. We know him as Alex Newshold. His name is Burn something or other. From Germany, and he is going to do a HealthPointe cooking class with some lean team recipes, HealthPointe recipes. So that'll be fun too. But Monday night, we need your help, guys. Let's make it a fun one.
Thank you, Carol. Your leadership and organizational skills are superb. This is a fantastic community. And but even though I'm 76, when I grow up, I want to be just like Dave and Hank.
All right.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Tom. And thank you, Carol. Yeah, so Monday night, looking forward to that. That'll be a fun episode, tips and tricks. Yeah, get your stuff into Carol if you want to participate in that panel. And then, yes, Thursday, we know that Thursday, it's like always check with your coach, check with the person you're working with, because it may or may not be a program on Thursday night. But this week, it's going to be a special one. There is going to be one. And Thursday night. I'm not sure if it's the same link as it always is, but check with your coach. You'll make sure you get the right link, but as presumably it is. Were you saying, yes, it is the same link, Carol? Okay,
it's the same link, but they always send reminders also.
Yes. So if you've got the link, you could just join. And how fun to get Alex. I've seen some previews of him before. What an amazing individual from Austria. And is it Nina? Is his wife?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nina, Alex and Nina. So we're going to have a cooking class, a HealthPointe cooking class on Thursday night. That'll be so fun. So guys, what a great time again. What a way to, start off the month of April. Thank you, everyone, of course, for everybody that contributed and commented, and those of everybody that joined in just in general. We'll plan on next Saturday, same time, same place. And until then, bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Eric. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.